My dear students, in this video presentation, I shall make a detailed discussion of A Letter to God. It is a short story and the name of its writer is G.L. Fuentes. Now, my dear students, I welcome you all to my educational channel. The name of my educational channel is Priyankar Dotto. Here you will find video presentations on English language and literature of school level, college level, as well as of competitive examinations. Now we shall move to the text of the short story entitled A Letter to God. But before moving to the text, we shall have a look at the title of the story. The title of the story tells of a letter which is addressed to God. Now, we all know that God is the supreme most powerful creature of this earth. But we do not think of God in concrete terms. That's why, though we communicate with God, we do not think of God in concrete terms. That's why we are not supposed to write a letter to God. So, that person who, according to the title of this short story, writes a letter to God must have firm faith in God. But before that, that person must have the belief that God exists in concrete terms. So, whatever be the matter, the faith of that person in God, or rather in the existence of God, and the belief of that person that his letter to God will be reciprocated are the two important things which make one curious, and to abate or satiate this curiosity, one reads the text itself. So, before moving to the text, we shall focus on that person who writes a letter to God, and we shall keep in mind the fact that we have to know why does that person write a letter to God, because we are accustomed to pray to God, not write a letter to God. So the proximity of that person with God is also an important aspect which has been suggested by the title. Now we shall move to the text itself. The house, the only one in the entire valley, sat on the crest of a low hill. In the first sentence, we come across the mention of a valley. A valley is a plain land which is surrounded by mountains. A valley generally has a river. So in the entire valley there is a single house. It is located on the topmost part of a low hill. From this height one could see the river and the field of ripe corn dotted with the flowers that always promised a good harvest. So the height of that house is capable enough to provide a view, not simply a view, but a complete view of the river and the fields. These are obviously the agricultural fields where crops are produced, and also there are some flower bearing plants in the valley. So the existence of the river, the flowers and the agricultural fields always suggest that the fields are arable enough to have a good harvest, to have a good production of crops. The only thing the earth needed was a downpour or at least a shower for getting a very good cultivation from these lands. The soil needed rainfall. Here, two types of rainfall have been mentioned. The first one is downpour, it is torrential rain, and the second one is shower, it is drizzle. So, any kind of rainfall will do the job. Throughout the morning, Lencho, who knew his fields intimately, had done nothing else but see the sky towards the northeast. In the whole morning, Lencho. Now we come across a human being. The person is named Lencho. He has a very good knowledge of the nature of the soil of the agricultural fields. Throughout the morning, that person has looked at the sky towards the northeast. That is, he expects that clouds will gather in the northeast sky, and the rainfall from these clouds will help him to get a good harvest or to get a very good amount of production of crops. Now we are really going to get some water, woman. Lencho tells his wife that from the amount of clouds which have gathered in the northwest sky, it is evident that some kind of rainfall is about to happen. The woman who was preparing supper replied, "Yes, God willing." So Lencho's wife was preparing the dinner, which is obviously the last meal taken at night. So Lencho's wife gave the opinion that rainfall will occur only if God wants rainfall to occur. So Lencho's wife has faith in God. She thinks that nothing will occur unless God wants it to occur. The older boys were working in the field while the smaller ones were playing near the house until the woman called them all. It was evening, or it may be night. So the older boys of the family, they are working in the field, and the smaller ones were playing near the house. It was obvious that those who were small were not capable enough to participate in the field of corns and help the younger ones in their agricultural works. So the woman called them all come for dinner. Lencho's wife called them to come in and take the dinner. It was during the meal that, just as Lencho had predicted, big drops of rain began to fall. When Lencho and his family members were taking their dinner, big drops of rain began to fall. The rainfall started. In the northeast, huge mountains of clouds could be seen approaching. Several dark clouds gathered in the northeast sky. So, what Lencho anticipated proved to be true. The air was fresh and sweet. So, as the rainfall started, the air became cool. So, the air became also soothing. The man went out for no other reason than to have the pleasure of feeling of the rain on his body. Lencho went outside. There was no need for it, but still he went outside because he wanted to have a feel of the falling of the rain on his skin. And when he returned, he exclaimed, "These are not raindrops falling from the sky. They are new coins. The big drops are 10-cent pieces and the little ones are fives. When he came back, he told with emotion that the raindrops may be compared to new coins. He compared the big drops of rain to 10-cent coins and the small drops of rain to 5-cent coins. Actually, what Lencho meant by this comparison is that the rainfall was very much vital for the bumper production of crops, and this bumper production of crops will give them a lot of money. With a satisfied expression, he regarded the field of ripe corn with its flowers draped in a curtain of rain. So the rainfall made Lencho highly satisfied. He became complacent. He looked at the field of ripe corn. Corns had already been there in the fields. There were flowers, and rainfall had covered everything like a curtain. But suddenly a strong wind began to blow. All of a sudden, there was a change of weather. From nowhere, the wind began to blow. It was a powerful wind. It was not simply a play of air at a mild pace. And along with the rain, very large hailstones began to fall. So, pieces of ice began to fall with the rain. These truly did resemble new silver coins. The hailstones, the small pieces of ice, looked like new silver coins. The boys, exposing themselves to the rain, ran out to collect the frozen pearls. So the boys of Lencho's family, they went in the rain because they wanted to collect the hailstones which were falling from the sky. So these boys did not have the maturity to understand that the hailstones were doing no good to the crops. "It is really getting bad now," exclaimed the man. "I hope it passes quickly." Lencho sensed that the weather had changed from good to bad. It was not beneficial for the production of crops, rather it was harmful. But things did not go as Lencho wanted. What did Lencho want? Lencho wanted the weather to change, but it did not change. For an hour the hail rained on the house, the garden, the hillside, the cornfield, on the whole valley. The field was white as if covered with salt. The hailstones began to fall everywhere. On the house where Lencho and his family members lived, in their garden, by the side of the hill on which their house was located, in the fields of corn possessed by Lencho, as well as in the entire valley. So the hailstones covered everything, so everything looked white. It seemed as if these things looked like being covered with salt. Not a leaf remained on the trees. The trees became devoid of leaves. The corn was totally destroyed. The crops which Lencho had cultivated in the land were totally smashed. The flowers were gone from the plants. The flowers, which were very tender in nature, could not succumb to the great force of the wind, or rather the storm. Lencho's soul was filled with sadness. Lencho became extremely sad. When the storm had passed, he stood in the middle of the field and said to his sons, "A plague of locusts would have left more than this. The hail has left nothing. This year we will have no corn." So after an hour, the storm ended. There was no more rainfall. Lencho went to the middle of the field and told his sons that the kind of damage done to the crops by the storm and the hailstones is enough to make them starve throughout the year, because they will have no crops that year. And he also adds that if a group of locusts would have attacked his crops, a greater number or greater amount of crops would have been left unaffected. Actually, the hail storms destroyed everything. That night was a sorrowful one. So the night which promised to give future happiness to Lencho and his family members proved to be full of sorrow. All our work for nothing. Lencho told that they have worked hard to get very good production of crops, but their effort has gone to smoke because of the storm and the hailstones. There is no one who can help us. We shall all go hungry this year. He added that no one can help them. They will have to remain unfed because they were the only people who lived in the valley. They relied on the production of crops for maintaining their livelihood, and as there was every possibility of the field becoming totally unproductive because of the hailstones and the storm, it was natural that they will not get anything to eat. But in the hearts of all who lived in that solitary house in the middle of that valley, there was a single hope: help from God. Whatever they told, whatever Lencho told, whatever his wife told, was apparent, because they all had a belief that God will help them. So, this belief comes from leading a very simple life pattern and having a very simple thought pattern. So, they think in very simple terms. That's why they have the belief that God will obviously help us. Don't be so upset, even though this seems like a total loss. Remember, no one dies of hunger. Lencho's wife tells Lencho not to become frustrated. However, she admits that all their crops have been destroyed. Nothing has been left. She adds that hunger does not produce death to anyone. Lencho sides with his wife when he tells that no one dies of hunger. That is, hunger does not cause the death of any human being. All through the night, Lencho thought only of his one hope, the help from God, whose eyes, as he had been instructed, see everything, even what is deep in one's conscience. Throughout the night, Lencho thought that he and his family members have worked hard to get a very good production of crops, but that has not become possible because of the violent form of nature. And now he is hopeful that God will help them. He feels that, or rather, he has the belief that God can see anything and everything, even what is deep in our conscience. Lencho was an ox of a man. An ox, we all know, is an animal that is supposed to work hard for its master. Now, Lencho has been compared to an ox because he works hard to maintain his livelihood, working like an animal in the fields. So, whatever I have told just now has been told here in a different language, but still he knew how to write. So, Lencho was a farmer. He knew how to get production from the crops, or rather through the crops, through cultivation. But he knew how to write. He had some knowledge in writing. That is, he knew how to convey his feelings to words. The following Sunday at daybreak, he began to write a letter, which he himself would carry to town and place in the mail. It was nothing less than a letter to God. In the Sunday, which came afterwards, Lencho started to write a letter to God. It was dawn. He carried the letter to town and put the letter in the post box of the post office. So what did Lencho write in his letter to God? He wrote, God, if you don't help me, my family and I will go hungry this year. Lencho simply told God that if God did not help him and his family members, they will have to remain unfed throughout that year. I need 100 pesos in order to sow my field again and to live until the crop comes because the hailstorm. He added that he needed 100 pesos, with which he will buy seeds, put them or sow them in the field, and maintain his familial expenses till those seeds turn into crops and give him enough money to maintain the expenses of his family members. He simply mentioned the cause of the hailstorm but did not clarify it. So, the thing which strikes us is, why did Lencho not clarify the cause of the hailstorm? That is, how did the hailstorm left him in this position? So, actually, Lencho felt that God knew everything. So, a bare mention of the cause was enough. He wrote to God on the envelope. On the envelope, he wrote to God and put the letter inside and still went to town. So within that envelope, he put the letter and went to the town. He was still traveled. So he did not have the faith that God will, he was in some kind of mental anxiety. He hoped that God will help him, but still he could not keep away his practical self that what will happen to his family members if they have to go unfed throughout the year. At the post office, he placed a stamp on the letter and dropped it in the mailbox. Having gone to the post office, he purchased a postal stamp, attached it on the envelope and dropped the envelope in the post box. One of the employees, who was a postman and also helped at the post office, went to his boss laughing heartily and so he showed him the letter to God. The postman of the post office opened the post box, found the letter, or rather the envelope on which was written to God, and produced the letter to his boss, that is the postman. Never in his career as a postman had he known that address. The postmaster, a fat, amiable fellow, also broke out laughing. The postman did not know the address of God. We also do not know the address of God. So the postmaster, who had a very bulky physique and who was a very kind of friendly, jovial kind of person, he also started to laugh looking at the address of of God, which is nothing but to God. But almost immediately he turned serious. In the next moment, the postmaster became serious, tapped the letter on his desk. He put the letter on his desk, making some sound, and commented, "What faith? I wish I had the faith of the man who wrote this letter, starting up a correspondence with God." So that postmaster was struck by Lencho's faith in God. He wanted to have the faith which Lencho has in God. And what struck him more was that Lencho started to communicate with God. While discussing the significance of the title, I mentioned that we pray to God. But here, a person is said to communicate with God. This is where Lencho becomes different from us. And this difference is caused by Lencho's faith that God exists and that God helps those human beings who are in distress. So, in order not to shake the writer's faith in God, the postmaster came up with an idea, answered the letter. So, before opening the envelope, the postmaster decided that he will try to maintain the faith of that person in God by giving a reply on behalf of God. But when he opened it, it was evident that to answer it, he needed something more than goodwill, ink and paper. So before opening the envelope, the postmaster thought that he will simply write a letter in the name of God and that will simply end the matter. But after opening it, or rather opening the envelope and reading the content of the letter, he understood that he needed something else than his good intention, ink and paper. But he stuck to his resolution. He asked for money from his employees. He himself gave a part of his salary, and several friends of his were obliged to give something for an act of charity. So Lencho had asked for 100 pesos. He did not have the postmaster did not have the 100 pesos. So he gave a part of his salary, told the employees of his office to give or to contribute something, and told some of his friends to contribute something as some act of charity. It was impossible for him to gather together the 100 pesos, so he was able to send the farmer only a little more than half. So he could not collect 100 pesos. Whatever he collected was a little more than the half of the desired amount. The desired amount was 100 pesos. Half of that was 50 pesos. So the postmaster could collect a little more than 50 pesos. He put the money in an envelope, addressed it to Lencho with a letter containing with a single word as a signature, God. So he put the money in the envelope. He wrote a letter. The letter had only one word. The word was God. But it was not a word actually. It was used as some kind of a signature of God. The following Sunday, Lencho came a bit earlier than usual to ask if there was a letter for him. It was the postman himself who handed the letter to him, while the postmaster, experiencing the contentment of a man who has performed a good deed, looked on from his office. The following Sunday, Lencho came to the post office, and the time of his arrival was earlier than the time on which he had come the previous Sunday. He asked if there was any letter for him. The postmaster gave him the letter, which was written by the postmaster, and the money within that envelope was contributed by them all. The postmaster did not come in front of Lencho. He looked at Lencho from a distance. He was satisfied in thinking that he has done a very good job. Lencho showed not the slightest surprise on seeing the money. Such was his confidence, but he became angry when he counted the money. God could not have a mistake, nor could he have denied Lencho what he had requested. So Lencho was not surprised to see that there was money within the envelope. He counted the money, and having counted it, he found that this amount was lesser than what he had asked for. He became angry. Why? God could not have made a mistake. So he did not believe, he could not believe that God will make the mistake of giving him less, deliberately, obviously, less than what he has asked for. And he could not believe that God will deliberately give him less than what he has asked for. So it was not a counting mistake, it was not a deliberate payment of less amount than the required one. Immediately, Lencho went up to the window to ask for paper and ink. Lencho became angry. He went to the window of the post office, asked for paper and ink. On the public writing table, he started to write. He went to the writing table, which was kept there at the post office. He started to write. Of course, he wanted to write letter to God. And the cause of writing the letter must be the shortage of the amount he had asked for. With much wrinkling of his brow caused by the effort he had to make to express his ideas. So Lencho, as we have come to know from our reading of the story up to this point, was a farmer, and he could simply write, and therefore in order to write this letter to God, he had to give great intellectual effort, and this effort made him think deeper, and it caused a wrinkle in his brow. When he finished it, he went to the window to buy a stamp, which he licked and then affixed to the envelope with a blow of his fist. After having written the letter, he put the letter in an envelope. On the envelope, he put a postal ticket, and he licked the back portion of the postal ticket and put it on the envelope, then hit the postal ticket with the fist so that the ticket remains fixed on the envelope. The moment the letter fell in the mailbox, the postmaster went to open it. It said, God, of the money that I asked for, only 70 pesos reached me. Send me the rest, since I need it very much. But don't send it to me through the mail, because the post office employees are a bunch of crooks. Lencho. So after Lencho dropped the envelope in the post box, the postman went there, opened the post box, brought out the envelope, and the envelope was torn open, and the letter was read out. In this letter to God, obviously it was Lencho's second letter to God. Lencho wrote that he had asked for 100 pesos, but God has sent him 70 pesos. He needs 30 pesos more, and he needs them at any cost. And at the end of the letter, he makes a request to God not to send the money through postal means, because according to him, the employees of the post office are of wicked nature. So indirectly, Lencho thinks that the employees of the post office have taken out the 30 pesos from the 100 pesos which God actually put in the envelope. This is where the story ends. Now we have to think as to why does Lencho say so. So Lencho is a very simple person. He has immense faith in God. He cannot believe that God has sent him 70 pesos in place of 100 pesos. So he obviously thinks that the post office employees have taken out those 30 pesos from those 100 pesos, and he does not actually show any kind of bitterness for the post office employees. Rather, one can say that he accuses the honesty of the post office employees only because his faith in God and of his innate simplicity. Now, I have just mentioned that the story ends there. At this point, the reader is sure to think as to how will the post office employees, including the postmaster, will react to the letter, and whether they will say anything to Lencho or whether they will write anything to Lencho on behalf of God. So this question is there, but the answer of this question is not there in the story. So we can say that there is a sense of incompletion so far as the curiosity of the readers is concerned. That's why it's a short story. A short story, as Tagore defines, ends with a sense of incompletion so far as the experience or the expectation of the reader is concerned. So this is all what I have to say about this short story. Before I go to the valedictory section of this video presentation, here is an important declaration. In the description part of this video presentation, you will find a link. By clicking on the link, you will be able to go to my personal blog or website, from where you will be able to view exhaustive study materials on this short story. That is, you will find there word notes, paraphrase, multiple choice type questions, objective choice type questions, extract based questions, short questions, broad questions, value based questions, textbook exercise, figures of speech used in the story, etc. Now, before concluding this video presentation, I request you to subscribe my channel, to share my video presentations to your friends, to put forward your comment and your queries in the comment section of this video presentation. Thank you. See you again in my next video presentation. Thank you.